from a lawsuit that sparked its existence to a stunt double built on a rival car's chassis, and an auction disaster where it failed to sell despite celebrity provenance, the white Ferrari Testarossa that ruled Miami's neon streets harbors secrets far stranger than any episode plot. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Miami Vice's Ferrari Testarossa. Fact 1. Enzo Ferrari's rage birthed the Testarossa era. The iconic white Ferrari Testarossa that dominated Miami Vice's later seasons exists for one surprising reason. Enzo Ferrari himself was absolutely furious about a fake car. During the show's first 2 seasons, Detective Sonny Crockett drove what appeared to be a sleek black 1972 Ferrari Daytona Spider, but it was actually an elaborate fraud. The Ferrari was nothing more than a Chevrolet Corvette C3 chassis that had been fitted with Ferrari-shaped fiberglass body panels by a specialty company called McBurney Coachcraft. The fake Ferraris looked convincing enough to fool television audiences, and the show paid around $49,000 each for 2 of these replicas. When Enzo Ferrari discovered that his company's prestigious name and design were being used without permission on what was essentially a Corvette in disguise, he was reportedly enraged. The founder of Ferrari viewed this as a serious insult to his brand's reputation and directed his company to take immediate legal action. Ferrari Automobili filed a lawsuit demanding that McBurney Coachcraft and the Miami Vice producers stop producing and selling these replica vehicles, citing trademark infringement on the Ferrari name and styling. Rather than simply shutting down production, Ferrari saw an opportunity in the show's massive popularity. The company made the producers an offer they couldn't refuse. Ferrari would donate 2 brand-new 1986 Testarossas to the show completely free of charge, but only on one condition: the fake Daytona replicas had to be destroyed. The producers quickly agreed to avoid any legal troubles, and the fake Daytonas were removed from the series. To satisfy the deal, the show dramatically blew up an empty Daytona body shell in the Season 3 premiere episode titled "When Irish Eyes Are Crying," marking the end of the replica era and the beginning of the Testarossa's reign on Miami Vice. Fact 2. Originally black, repainted white by accident. The famous white Ferrari Testarossa that became synonymous with Miami Vice was never supposed to be white at all. When Ferrari donated the 2 cars to replace the fake Daytonas, both Testarossas arrived in metallic black with cream-colored beige leather interiors, and they were part of an early production run known as monospecchio models, which means they had only a single side mirror. The cars were beautiful in black, but something unexpected happened that changed television history. The exact reason for the color change has become one of Miami Vice's enduring mysteries because multiple conflicting stories have emerged over the years. One version claims that Don Johnson, who played Sonny Crockett, was involved in a driving mishap on set that resulted in one of the black Testarossas getting damaged and requiring a complete new paint job. Another story suggests that one of the cars crashed before filming even began, and during the repair process, the production team made the decision to paint both vehicles white. The most commonly cited explanation comes from producer Michael Mann, who reportedly decided that the black exterior paint simply didn't photograph well during the show's frequent night scenes and requested that both cars be repainted white to make them more visible on camera. Interestingly, viewers can actually catch a glimpse of the original black Testarossa in the Season 3 premiere episode called "When Irish Eyes Are Crying," where it appears briefly as a car belonging to a character named Bunny Berrigan. Then in the very next episode titled "Stone's War," the same car reappears in white when it's given to Crockett, and the character even comments that it has new paint when he receives it. Whether the color change was due to an accident, visibility concerns, or both, the white Testarossa became one of the most recognizable vehicles in television history. Fact 3. The stunt double was a rival Italian car. Behind the scenes of Miami Vice, the Ferrari Testarossa had a secret identity that most viewers never discovered. The production team used a completely different car disguised as a Testarossa to perform all the dangerous driving stunts, and that car was actually a 1972 De Tomaso Pantera, which was manufactured by a rival Italian automaker. This clever deception was necessary because the real Testarossas were worth over $180,000 each, and the producers couldn't risk destroying such expensive vehicles during high-speed chases, power slides, and dramatic 180-degree spins. The man responsible for creating this automotive disguise was Carl Roberts, the same person who had worked on building the fake Daytona replicas that were used earlier in the series. When Roberts learned that the Daytona was being replaced, he proposed a trade to the Miami Vice producers. He would build them a Testarossa stunt car in exchange for keeping the doomed Daytona replicas. His first attempt involved trying to remove the Daytona skin from the Corvette chassis and replace it with Testarossa body pieces. But this approach yielded poor results and had to be abandoned. Roberts then searched for a better foundation and discovered that the De Tomaso Pantera was perfectly suited for the job because it had exactly the same wheelbase measurements as the actual Ferrari Testarossa, which made fitting the Ferrari body panels much easier and more convincing. The Pantera was heavily modified to withstand the demanding duties of television filming, including being raised 1.5 inches for additional ground clearance and having thick square tubing installed to reinforce the roof and prevent it from buckling during stunts. A special railing was also added to support the frame and act as a protective skid plate underneath the car. Fact 4. Real Testarossas had a fatal flaw for TV. The authentic Ferrari Testarossas donated to Miami Vice looked absolutely stunning on camera, but they had a serious mechanical problem that made them nearly impossible to use for the show's signature action sequences. The real Testarossas suffered from a defect that caused the engine to stall whenever drivers attempted to execute high-speed spins, which was exactly the kind of dramatic driving maneuver that Miami Vice needed for its chase scenes. This technical flaw meant that the genuine Ferraris simply couldn't perform the power slides and 180-degree turns that had become a trademark of the show's visual style. This defect wasn't just an inconvenience for the production team, it was actually one of the primary reasons why the De Tomaso Pantera stunt car became absolutely essential to filming. While the real Testarossas would cut out and stop running during aggressive spinning maneuvers, the modified Pantera could handle these moves without any problems, allowing the stunt drivers to execute all the spectacular driving sequences that audiences expected to see. The producers needed a car that could reliably perform impressive spins and slides on command, and the Pantera delivered exactly what the expensive Ferraris couldn't. The stalling issue also explains why viewers who watch Miami Vice carefully can often spot when the show switches between the real Ferrari and the Pantera stunt double during action-heavy episodes. Anytime Crockett's Testarossa needed to perform a dramatic spin or engage in dangerous high-speed driving, the cameras were actually filming the Pantera wearing its Ferrari disguise. This arrangement allowed the production to protect the valuable authentic Testarossas while still delivering the thrilling car chases and stunts that made Miami Vice so visually exciting, all without most viewers ever realizing they were watching two completely different vehicles pretending to be the same car. Fact 5. Special brake system for TV spins. The De Tomaso Pantera stunt car wasn't just disguised to look like a Ferrari Testarossa, it was also equipped with specialized modifications that turned it into a precision stunt machine, capable of performing dramatic maneuvers on demand. The most ingenious addition was a custom auxiliary braking system that was specifically designed to help drivers execute the kind of controlled spins that looked spectacular on television. This special brake was wired to a separate brake booster and had one very specific purpose. It could lock both rear wheels simultaneously with the pull of a lever, allowing the stunt driver to throw the back end of the car into a dramatic slide whenever the scene required it. The technical setup of this system was quite sophisticated for its time. The auxiliary master cylinder was carefully repositioned in the brake line so that it could directly feed hydraulic pressure to the rear wheels independently from the normal braking system. When the driver applied the regular brake pedal, fluid would pass freely through the stuntmaster cylinder and reach all four wheels normally. But when the driver activated the special stunt brake, the system would block off the compensating port and send all the pressure exclusively to the rear wheels, essentially locking them up on command while the front wheels kept rolling. This modification was put to particularly impressive use in the episode titled Down for the Count Part 2, where viewers can see the Testarossa performing some of its most memorable spinning maneuvers during a chase scene. The improved traction needed for these stunts also required the installation of BF Goodrich TA tires and Tilton brake calipers, which gave the stunt drivers even more control. Additionally, the team installed a hydraulic inline brake power booster that was actually lifted from a Volvo P1800, which operated on engine vacuum to help break the rear wheels loose from the pavement during those dramatic power slides. Fact 6. it cost more than Sonny's annual salary. The financial reality behind Miami Vice's Ferrari Testarossas reveals just how absurdly expensive these cars were compared to everything else on the show. Each genuine Testarossa had a sticker price of $181,000 in 1986, which would be equivalent to well over $500,000 in today's money when adjusted for inflation. To put this in perspective, the fictional character Sonny Crockett was supposed to be an undercover detective working for the Miami Police Department, and his actual annual salary as a real cop would have been nowhere near enough to afford even one of these supercars, let alone maintain it. The enormous price tag becomes even more striking when compared to what the production had been spending on vehicles before Ferrari got involved. The fake Daytona Spiders that were used during the first 2 seasons cost approximately $35,000 each, which means the real Testarossas were more than 5 times as expensive as the replicas they replaced. This massive difference in value completely changed how the production team had to approach filming any scenes involving the car. Although Ferrari donated both Testarossas to the show free of charge as part of the settlement deal, the producers still couldn't afford to take any chances with damaging or destroying such incredibly valuable machines. The insurance costs alone would have been astronomical, and replacing a wrecked Testarossa would have blown through a significant portion of the show's entire budget for vehicle expenses. This is precisely why the production team invested in creating the De Tomaso Pantera stunt double and went to such elaborate lengths to disguise it as a Ferrari. The producers could beat up the $30,000 Pantera during stunts without worrying about financial disaster, while keeping the priceless genuine Ferraris safe for the close-up glamour shots that made Miami Vice look so stylish and expensive on screen. Fact 7. Enzo Ferrari personally gifted Don Johnson a silver Testarossa. The exposure that Miami Vice provided for the Ferrari Testarossa was so valuable that Enzo Ferrari himself decided to personally thank the show's star with an extraordinary gift. Don Johnson, who played Detective Sonny Crockett and spent years behind the wheel of the white Testarossa on screen, received a brand new silver 1989 Ferrari Testarossa directly from Enzo Ferrari as a gesture of appreciation for all the publicity the car had received from appearing on the hit television series. This wasn't just any Testarossa either. It was a later model year that came 3 years after the show first introduced the white version to audiences. According to reports, Enzo Ferrari was actually a fan of Miami Vice himself, which makes this gift even more meaningful considering that the relationship between Ferrari and the show had started with a lawsuit over fake cars. The fact that the legendary founder of Ferrari personally chose to reward Johnson shows just how much the company valued the cultural impact that Miami Vice had on making the Testarossa one of the most recognizable sports cars of the 1980s. The silver Testarossa became part of Johnson's personal vehicle collection, which grew quite impressive during and after his time on the show. Years later, Johnson decided it was time to streamline his life and reduce the size of his car collection. In 2002, the actor sold 6 vehicles from his personal stable at the 32nd annual Barrett-Jackson Classic Car Auction in Scottsdale, Arizona. Among the cars that went under the hammer was the silver Testarossa that Enzo Ferrari had gifted him, along with the yellow 1970 Plymouth Barracuda from his later show Nash Bridges, and a 1949 Ford pickup truck that he had received from his ex-wife Melanie Griffith. Fact 8. Michael Mann also got his own custom Testarossa. Don Johnson wasn't the only person connected to Miami Vice who received a personal Ferrari as a thank you for the show's promotional impact. Michael Mann, the executive producer who served as the creative visionary behind Miami Vice's distinctive visual style, also received his own Testarossa from Ferrari, and his was even more unique than the one given to Johnson. Mann's Testarossa came with a special custom paint job in blue metallic, a color that was specifically chosen for him and wasn't part of the standard Ferrari color palette at the time. This gift to Mann was particularly fitting considering his role in shaping every aspect of Miami Vice's aesthetic, including the famous decision to use the Testarossa in the first place. Mann was known for being obsessively detail-oriented about how the show looked on screen, and he was the one who insisted that the cars donated by Ferrari be repainted white because he believed they would be more visible during the show's many nighttime filming sequences. His influence extended far beyond just the vehicles, as he famously banned all earth tones from the show's color scheme and personally researched Miami locations to capture the city's unique atmosphere. Ferrari's decision to give both Mann and Johnson their own personal Testarossas demonstrates just how much the Italian automaker valued the exposure that Miami Vice provided. The show turned the Testarossa into a cultural icon of the 1980s, associating it with glamour, speed, and the exciting lifestyle depicted in the series. By giving these gifts to the star and the executive producer, Ferrari acknowledged that Miami Vice had done more for the Testarossa's image and desirability than any traditional advertising campaign could have achieved, transforming the car into a symbol of the entire decade. Fact 9. The car appeared in a Pitbull music video. One of the authentic Miami Vice hero cars made a memorable return to the screen decades after the show ended, appearing in a music video that paid deliberate tribute to the series that made it famous. In June of 2015, just 2 years before the car would go up for auction, it was featured in the music video for a song called "Fun" by Pitbull featuring Chris Brown. The video was specifically designed as a love letter to Miami Vice, recreating the show's iconic visual style down to the smallest details. The music video producers went to great lengths to capture the authentic Miami Vice aesthetic, using the exact same lettering and font that appeared in the original television series opening credits. They also incorporated the show's signature pastel pink and blue color schemes throughout the video, which were the trademark colors that executive producer Michael Mann had insisted upon during the show's run. Even the video's plot borrowed from Miami Vice themes, with Pitbull playing an undercover character investigating a woman involved in illegal import and export operations between Colombia and Miami. The video didn't just feature the white Testarossa either. It also included the black Ferrari Daytona Spider replica that had been used in the show's earlier seasons, bringing both of the series' most iconic vehicles together in one production. The music video even filmed at some of the same Miami locations that had been used during the original show, including a distinctive pink house that appeared in a 1988 episode of Miami Vice titled "Mirror Image," which featured actress Julia Roberts. The use of the actual hero car in this music video served as a promotional opportunity before it was listed for sale, reminding potential buyers of the Testarossa's continued cultural relevance 30 years after Miami Vice first aired. Fact 10. It failed to sell multiple times. Despite being one of the most famous Ferraris in television history, one of the hero cars from Miami Vice had a surprisingly difficult time finding a buyer willing to pay what the sellers believed it was worth. The car's troubled sales journey began in December of 2014, when it was listed on eBay with an asking price of $1,750,000, a price tag that reflected the owner's belief that the car's celebrity provenance made it worth far more than a regular Testarossa. However, despite all the media attention the listing received, no one was willing to meet that astronomical price, and the eBay auction ended without a sale. The owner tried again in 2015, bringing the car to a Mecum daytime auction in Monterey, California, hoping that the auction house setting might attract serious collectors with deep pockets. When that attempt also failed to produce a buyer, the car was offered at a second Mecum auction later that same year, but once again it went home without selling. The car had now failed to find a buyer 3 times in less than 2 years, which was becoming an embarrassing pattern for what was supposed to be an incredibly desirable piece of automotive and television history. Finally, in January of 2017, the car was entered into the Barrett-Jackson Classic Car Auction in Scottsdale, Arizona. And this time, the sellers made a crucial decision. They listed it with no reserve, meaning it would sell to the highest bidder regardless of the final price. The car finally sold, but the hammer price was a shocking $151,800, which represented a 91% discount from the original $1.75 million asking price. This dramatic difference between expectations and reality demonstrated that even the most famous celebrity cars have limits to what collectors will actually pay for them. Fact 11. The other car's owner turned down $1 million. While one of the Miami Vice hero cars struggled through multiple failed sale attempts, the second authentic Testarossa from the show had a completely different story. The owner of the Fort Lauderdale Swap Shop, a massive 88-acre indoor and outdoor flea market complex in Florida, purchased this car directly from NBC for $750,000 sometime after the show ended. According to the owner's claims, he has since turned down multiple offers that exceeded $1 million because he has no intention of ever parting with this piece of television history. The swap shop is a rather unusual location to find such a valuable and famous vehicle, as it's primarily known as a marketplace where thousands of vendors sell everything from antiques to fresh produce, and the complex also operates as a 14-screen drive-in movie theater at night. However, tucked inside the 180,000 square foot main building is a hidden automotive museum that many shoppers walk right past without even noticing. This museum houses an extraordinary collection of exotic supercars worth hundreds of millions of dollars, including multiple rare Ferraris, a Porsche 959, a Mercedes-Benz McLaren SLR, and other European hypercars. The Miami Vice Testarossa sits among these automotive treasures as one of the collection's most recognizable vehicles, serving as a permanent attraction that draws both car enthusiasts and fans of the television show who want to see the actual car that appeared on screen. The owner's decision to keep the car on public display rather than selling it for a profit suggests that he values its role as a centerpiece of his museum collection more than the substantial financial gain he could realize by accepting one of those million-dollar-plus offers. Fact 12. The license plate was oddly specific. One of the most recognizable yet mysterious details about Sonny Crockett's white Ferrari Testarossa is the Florida license plate that appeared on the car throughout the show's final 3 seasons. The plate read AIF00M in the standard Florida color scheme of white, orange, and teal green, and while it looked like just another random combination of letters and numbers, nobody has ever officially explained what those characters were meant to represent or if they had any hidden meaning at all. The plate first appeared in the Season 3 episode titled Stone's War, when Lieutenant Castillo presented the Testarossa to Crockett, and it remained on the car for the rest of the series through the final episode in 1989. Unlike the previous fake Daytona's license plate, which read ZAQ178, the Testarossa's AIF00M combination doesn't seem to spell out any obvious words, acronyms, or references to the show, the characters, or Miami itself. Despite decades of fan speculation and numerous attempts to decode some secret meaning behind the letters and numbers, no production team members have ever come forward to explain the choice. What makes this mundane prop detail even more interesting is how it has become a piece of pop culture memorabilia in its own right. The license plate has achieved such iconic status among Miami Vice fans that replica versions are now manufactured and sold through major retailers, including Amazon and specialty prop websites. These reproductions are marketed as decorative vanity plates, intended for display purposes, collectibles, or novelty items, and they feature the exact same AIF00M combination in the authentic Florida license plate style. The fact that a seemingly random license plate number has become commercially viable merchandise decades after the show ended demonstrates just how deeply fans remember even the smallest visual details from Miami Vice. Fact 13. It violated Miami Vice's sacred color rules. The white Ferrari Testarossa that became synonymous with Miami Vice actually benefited from one of the most unusual and strict production rules in television history. Executive producer Michael Mann was obsessively particular about the visual appearance of the show, and he implemented a famous directive that became known as the No Earth Tones rule. Mann explicitly banned the use of certain colors from appearing anywhere on screen, specifically targeting red and brown along with other natural earth tone shades, because he wanted Miami Vice to have a distinctive visual style that separated it from every other show on television at the time. This color restriction applied to absolutely everything that appeared on camera, including clothing, cars, architecture, and even background props, and it was enforced rigorously during the show's first 2 seasons. Bobby Roth, one of the directors who worked on Miami Vice, later recalled being told, "There are certain colors you are not allowed to shoot, such as red and brown." The policy was inspired by Mann's wife Summer, who was an artist, and she had taught him about color theory while they were looking at Easter egg-toned paint chips together, which led to the show's signature palette of vibrating pastel colors in shades of pink, turquoise, mint green, and lavender. The white Testarossa fit perfectly within this carefully controlled color scheme, which is one reason why it looked so visually striking on screen during the night scenes that dominated the series. However, by the time Season 3 began, Dick Wolf had taken over as showrunner, and he started relaxing Mann's strict rules. The cast began wearing noticeably darker clothing and even some earth tones that would have been forbidden during the Mann era, and the overall color palette of the show shifted toward harsher neon shades instead of the softer pastels that had defined Miami Vice's original look. Fact 14. You can spot the fake in episodes. Dedicated Miami Vice fans who watch the show carefully can actually identify when the production switched from using the genuine Ferrari Testarossa to the De Tomaso Pantera stunt double during action sequences, even though the cars were supposed to look identical on screen. The Pantera disguise was quite convincing from a distance, but it had several telltale visual differences that sharp-eyed viewers can spot if they know what to look for, and once you learn these differences, it becomes impossible not to notice them when rewatching the series. The most obvious giveaway is the ride height of the vehicle, because the Pantera stunt car sat noticeably higher off the ground than the authentic Ferrari. This increased ground clearance was a necessary modification that Carl Roberts made to help the car survive the punishment of stunt driving, but it also meant that the Pantera appeared taller and had more visible space between the body and the road surface compared to the low-slung genuine Testarossa. The wheels were also different between the two cars, as the Pantera used different rims that didn't exactly match the distinctive wheel design of the real Ferrari. Perhaps the most revealing difference was the visible body panel seams that appeared on the Pantera's fiberglass shell. Because the Testarossa body panels had been custom fabricated to fit over the Pantera chassis, there were noticeable gaps and seam lines where the different sections of the body met, especially around the doors and fenders. The authentic Ferrari had been manufactured as a single integrated design, so its body panels fit together seamlessly without any visible gaps or misalignments. These seams become particularly obvious in certain episodes during close-up shots or when the lighting hits the car at specific angles, making it clear that the production was using the stunt double instead of risking damage to the priceless genuine Ferraris. Fact 15. Only white Ferrari in Crockett's fleet. The white Ferrari Testarossa holds a unique distinction among all the vehicles that Detective Sonny Crockett drove during his undercover work throughout Miami Vice's 5-season run. It was the only car he used for his cover identity that wasn't painted black, which makes it stand out even more dramatically when you consider how many different high-performance vehicles appeared in the series. Every other car that Crockett drove as part of his wealthy drug dealer persona came in black, creating a consistent visual theme that the Testarossa broke completely. Before the Testarossa arrived, Crockett's signature vehicle was the black Ferrari Daytona Spider replica that dominated the first 2 seasons, and that set the color standard for all his subsequent rides. When Crockett needed temporary transportation during various episodes, he drove a black Porsche 911 Targa, and he also used a black Ferrari 512 Berlinetta Boxer during certain undercover operations. There was even an episode where Crockett drove a black Chevrolet Apache pickup truck as part of his cover, and when he traveled to Los Angeles for an investigation, he rented a black Ferrari 328 GTS to maintain his image while working on the West Coast. The show never provided any explanation for why the Testarossa was white, while everything else Crockett drove remained black, though some fans have speculated that the color change was meant to symbolize a fresh start for the character after the dramatic destruction of his beloved Daytona. Others believe it was simply a practical production decision related to visibility during nighttime filming. There's also one brief moment in an episode called Victims of Circumstance, where Crockett is seen closing the driver's door of a yellow Corvette C4, suggesting he may have driven it to a meeting, though he's never actually shown behind the wheel of that particular vehicle during the scene.